Hey, welcome to dirtTRI.com's first ever, whatever we're going to name this video / podcast. I'm your host and founder and editor of dirtTRI.com, Jimmy Archer, and this is Will Kelsey, probably slightly more famous. He'll be the color commentator. Anyway, we've decided on a theme, and it's going to be alcohol for these. So this one is brought to you by Stella Artois and Four Roses Bourbon, the cheapest bourbon you can find in the liquor store. It's got a plastic screw top. That's how you can tell its quality. Anyway, on to the week's events. This is going to be our kind of weekend race recap because evidently people would rather see it on video or listen to it than have to read it, which is cool by me. Anyway. And our other guest today is going to be my cat. This is Stark. He's camera shy. Anyway, so what should we start with? Big race in Pelham, Alabama this week with the this is going to be a long title, but the Xterra Southeast Championships / USA Triathlon Off-Road Triathlon National Championships.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know why USAT decided to call it Off-Road Tri when they're like a subsidiary of ITU, and ITU is calling it Cross Tri, so everyone's confused on the names, but anyway, it's Off-Road Triathlon, no matter what you call it. Xterra, Off-Road, Cross Tri, whatever. Yeah. But that was the big race on the weekend, and we had a real shootout with the men.
Yeah.
With Braden Curry, kind of a Kiwi adventure racer convert.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of Xterra recently.
Yeah, he's definitely not new to Xterra.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had some really good results in the Worlds the last few years. I think 4th was his best.
Mm-hmm.
And he just won the Xterra Asia Pacific Championships. He won Xterra New Zealand this year. He's giving off-road triathlon Xterra a full go, and wants to win Worlds. And is over in the U.S. for probably the next 6 months because he wants to win the U.S. Championship or the U.S. Series as well, Xterra America Series. And
he just won't let the Americans have it. It's like
yeah.
Conrad and Dan were always coming after it, and Brad, and now it's like...
who was the last American to win it? I mean, Josiah's won the series.
He's won the series, but as far as who he competes with, it's almost always the South Africans and now the Kiwis.
Yeah. Which is something to touch on, actually, is that you remember Mark Leishman, another Kiwi.
Kevin.
Yeah. What's up, Mark? We've been going back and forth a little bit on email about, what's up with the pro category, because one of the talking points here about Alabama was there was more women pros than there were men.
Yeah.
And Mark contacted me and basically said, where are all the men at? Which was questionable. But anyway, he has a good point, though. There was 11 men starting, 15, 17 women.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I can think off the top of my head of at least 7 that we know where they are. Conrad's having a kid. He's in South Africa. Dan prematurely retired. I think he's coming back. But Dan retired. You and I are sitting on a couch doing this show. I couldn't afford to get there, and you're taking a year off.
Yeah.
Will got hit by a car.
Where did Brad end up? I didn't see Bradley Weiss.
Brad Weiss was in... I don't know where he... I think he did the Asia series.
Right.
And is taking some time
I
think he's going to be racing in Europe.
Yeah.
Because I know some of the European races have said that he's going to be there.
That's right. He and Ben Allen have just been battling it out in the Asian Pacific Series. So I know that came down to the last couple races, which they were both flying around everywhere to try to get points. Yeah. And then you've got Cody Waite, I guess, is officially a coach now. Yeah, Cody's been having, I was talking to him via email, he was having some back problems.
Oh, okay.
And so he's taken some time off as well, similar to me.
Yep. And then the kid, Mauricio Mendez, has decided he's a road racer.
Yeah.
And is doing 70.3s, which, come back. Mo, really? Anyway, so that's a few of the guys that weren't there that would normally be there. And then, I mean, there's nothing really wrong with the fact that there's more women than there are men.
No.
I mean, good job, ladies.
Yeah, especially in off-road.
Bring some more friends. That's awesome.
Please.
I mean, the women in Kona are fighting to just even get even numbers in Kona, and in Xterra we've got more women than men. So, we're the gender balanced sport. But anyway, on the race front, I think the talking point was definitely, the story was the race-long battle between Braden Curry and Josiah Middaugh. Braden had about 2 minutes lead coming out of the water. Yeah. Josiah made that up, caught up to him. In Braden's own words, he then ran into a tree and had to take some time, put some work in catching up. They came into T2 together and then ran neck and neck the whole time. Yeah. And basically, Braden was a little faster on the flats, and the finish is flat. So he ended up taking it by 2 seconds over Chris Ganter, who was a little bit back, about 5 minutes off. And then it gets pretty tight between Chris Ganter, then Craig Evans. They're within a minute of each other. Ollie Shaw and Brandon Rokita kind of had a battle. They were within 20 seconds of each other. Alex Modesto was really close there in 7th. So really tight race in the men. Everyone looks like they're within about 4 or 5 minutes of each other. Yeah. But the battle was up front.
Oh, definitely.
Head to head.
Yeah, those two, that's one of those things you wish you had a camera on the two of them. Just listening to how they describe it, it was just attack after attack, just trying to find a weakness in the other one. And they said neither of them could really overpower the other one, that they basically were just evenly matched until the very end.
Yeah, it sounded like a track race or something like that. Yeah. They were putting in surges, testing each other. Braden came out T2 going a little faster, a little bit of an attack, but didn't get rid of Josiah, and then it became tactical from there. But I mean, let's be totally honest. The best, even the ITU race in Yokohama was pretty tight. That was a real battle, but it was the exact same thing. It came down to a sprint.
Yep.
Gomez, an Xterra guy, won over Brownlee, who evidently another story. Brownlee is supposedly doing Xterra UK.
Yeah, well,
and his brother. The entire Olympic podium is going to be at Xterra UK.
He and his brother grew up running cross country, and they've ridden mountain bikes before, so they know what they're doing. If they want to come over and play in the dirt with us,
that'll be a fun one. Yeah, but so anyway, I mean, it's the best racing in triathlon right now is either the ITU guys, which is draft legal, or Xterra, which is non-drafting, but, it is. I mean, it's not non-drafting. If you want to draft, that's fine, but if you're drafting off someone, you're probably going too slow because you're in the woods going over rocks or something, and you should probably go by them. But anyway, so the men's race was a real battle, which is awesome. I mean, that's great. And then, I mean, even down to 9th was still a battle. I mean, it was tight racing, which that's the Xterra Alabama course is starts out with really tight single track and then kind of opens into a double track climb, kind of a power climb, and then dives down into this technical section, aptly named in a way, Blood Rock, which isn't as scary as it sounds, but and then you go back into another tight section. So it's a real mountain biker's course. It's IMBA Epic trails, so it's some of the best riding you can do in the country, at least, if not world.
Yeah, and it's one of those trails that I'll go out beforehand, and it's hard to just ride the course. You want to go ride all the other trails, and then afterwards you want to go back and ride more of the trails around there. It's just, there's so much fun riding, which you would not think.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I wrote earlier this week that, when they announced that they were going to have the Southeast Championships in Pelham, Alabama, and I remember we were all like, Alabama, what? But the Xterra guys have a knack for finding these just hidden gem trail systems. So I mean that was it definitely proves that Curry is the real thing on a mountain bike.
Yeah, he knows how to ride a bike.
And evidently paddling totally crosses over to swimming because he swims well and is a quick runner if he's battling it out with Josiah, who's been probably without debate the best runner in Xterra. So it's going to be those two are going to have some real battles this year.
Yeah. One thing I was surprised with these results. It was a little unfortunate. I was kind of surprised to see Craig Evans that far back. I mean, this guy was second at the ITU Cross Tri World Championship on a very similar course in that same park in 2012.
Yeah. He's been top 4 for 5 years or something, right?
Yeah. So to see him kind of that far back was a little bit of a bummer. Kind of would have hoped for a little bit more from him, but then to see Chris Ganter up there, that has been really cool. Chris, his first few years in Xterra was more like a 7th, 8th place guy, and he had this awesome handlebar mustache. For some reason, he shaved it off, and now he's racing faster. So,
is that a good thing or?
I know. I'm like, damn it!
Speaking as one of
you need the mustache and go fast.
Yeah. Well, maybe I mean, we'll touch on the Fear of the Beard guy later on, Roger Serrano. But anyway, that's I mean, Ganter's had a good race in the West Championship as well.
Yep. Yeah.
And then you've got Craig, maybe a little bit off of what he might have been able to do, and then Ollie Shaw, pretty strong coming over from New Zealand as well in 5th. Then you've got Rakita Modesto, who's kind of stepped it up this year, I think. Ignatz, the old man, until I come back. And then Brad Zoller, he's training under Josiah, I believe. Right?
Is he?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. But he's another one of those Colorado mountain guys. And Chris Foster, who has been an ITU racer in the past, and coming over, trying out the Xterra scene.
Yeah.
Probably needs a little more time on the mountain bike, but we know how that is. It'll come around.
But that's actually a good segue into the women's race.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was one thing. It was kind of cool to see. We don't get a whole lot of the the pure roadies, the ITU athletes coming over. They stick out when they do come over because that was in the women's race. Sarah McClarty just crushed it in the water. But then
as she does,
yeah. But then she has a little bit of work to do on the mountain bike.
And she'll admit that she's new to mountain biking. She lives in Florida, the absolute epitome of mountain biking. But I mean, plenty of dirt roads probably.
Yeah, and you can do hill repeats over bridges and stuff.
But I mean, that's the thing is that she was primarily an Olympic distance triathlete who got kind of caught out a little bit by the whole situation with Lifetime getting rid of all their races. Like professional Olympic distance triathlon that's non-drafting is pretty much extinct.
Yeah, it's non-existent in the States.
Yeah, it took a big hit this year. Everyone's racing 70.3. If you want to do anything shorter, you're doing ITU racing, which is a completely different game. And then obviously there's Ironman if you want to race twice a year. But it's good that I like seeing Sarah come over and Chris Foster and some people like that. We don't have the prize purses that they probably are used to. But if we start getting deeper fields and great racing and more people come into the events, then maybe the prize purses will follow. But it's definitely good to have her, and she's totally stoked on it. Really enjoys the racing, and
I always love hearing that.
And is learning.
All the road athletes will come over to Xterra and be like, oh my gosh, this is so fun.
Yeah.
Like, why haven't I done this before?
Yeah. You never hear anyone come over and go, well, that sucked. I didn't like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going back to staring at a yellow line for 5 hours. But anyway, road triathlon's totally fine too. We just prefer the real triathlon. Anyway.
Yeah. I always get that. People will say, oh, so you race the off-road stuff. Well, do you do real triathlons
Yeah.
too? I was like, yeah, I just told you I do off-road stuff. I don't do those ones where you wear the weird helmet and ride the skinny tires.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's, that's the beauty of the off-road scene, is that we're a little bit more laid back. Everyone says it's a little more fun, as we can talk about in the women's side. There's some get-offs every once in a while, crashes, but you fall, you get back on, you keep riding. Everyone's got a war story at the end. It's always a good time at the after party or the barbecue or whatever, and everyone's got a tale to tell. And that was kind of that was the story a little bit of the women's. Leslie Patterson, who we'll get to in a second. It's good to have her back. She's overcame
Lyme disease. Yeah.
So she's kind of back full gun. She won in Vegas. She won here, but behind her, she might have been actually challenged a little bit more. Emma Gerard had a crash. Well, 4 crashes.
Yeah.
Bent a rotor on one of her brakes and had a picture up on Facebook. That wheel was not really spinning. That tends to slow you down a little bit. It takes a little more wattage to spin a bent rotor.
She got hungry out on course, so she wanted a taco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm still a little bit confused how you bend a rotor. I mean, she must have had a very interesting crash, but she did. I saw it. I saw the video. It happened. Susie Snyder hurt her shoulder.
Yeah,
she was a little beat up.
She took a huge chunk out of her shoulder. You could see, even on the photos of her up on the podium, she was tucking her arm. She was protecting it. Yeah. And some of the post-race photos, she did a number. I still haven't heard exactly what the results are, but ouch.
Yeah, and there were some other crashes out there. So anyway, Hannah Ray Finchamp. She's Xterra amateur world champion, numerous times, age group world champion, national champion. In the amateur ranks, this is her first pro race. She had a pretty hard crash and ended up having a DNF, which is too bad for your first pro race.
Yeah.
But she's young and she'll be back. But the women, a lot of crashes, a lot of issues because of that, which, not to scare anyone that's thinking about trying an Xterra, but part of the thing with Alabama is there's some rock gardens, there's some, loose off-camber stuff, and when you're a little bit lighter, that stuff knocks you around a little bit more than the men. And also the women some of them will use a hardtail, which maybe this wasn't a great course for that, even though it's a little bit lighter and all that kind of thing. But what I'm getting at is, when you're racing hard and you're pushing the envelope and you're a little bit lighter and you hit a rock or something, it does a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that really,
you or me.
Yeah.
We hit it, suspension absorbs it, and you go, huh. And the women get a little bumped off, and sometimes it's enough to knock you down. But and
I think that kind of also goes with the riding style. With women being lighter, they tend to not be jumping and picking up the bike as much.
Yeah.
And so when the rocks and the roots and everything are slick, you're riding over it more, as opposed to more of the men, especially like Brian Smith, dude. He spent half the race in the air.
Yeah.
The guy jumped and hopped over everything.
Well, that's like the good old days of riding behind Ned. I mean, back when I used to race neck and neck with Ned quite a bit, and it's like that guy was either going around stuff or over stuff. He would never ride. It was like he was protecting his wheels or something.
And especially down in Alabama, being so tight and twisty and windy and rocky and rooty, if you have the style of kind of riding over stuff, and just kind of hitting it, you'll slide around a lot more. You need to spend a lot more time in the air and hopping over stuff to avoid those slick spots. Yeah. Especially the bridges. Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, and that's where Emma said she went down, was on a bridge. And that humidity kind of hangs in the oak forest, and it keeps the wood a little bit wet, and you got to kind of keep that in mind. But, you're racing for the Southeast Championship, and everyone's, putting it on the line, and that's that's part of the reason why we do this, is that's the excitement, right? Yeah. But Emma Gerard had a strong race in second. Then Susie Snyder gutted it out in third.
Impressive.
Catherine Sterling had her best race ever for a championship race in fourth. Christine Jeffrey had a bum ankle, but came in fifth. It was pretty solid. Maya Ignatz was sixth, outdoing the husband by a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was her best race as a pro as well. And then we had Sarah Schuler, Cara Lapointe, Jamie Beretta from Breckenridge, and Sarah McClarty in 10th. So pretty strong race, pretty deep with the women. And the big kind of story there, though, is that Leslie Patterson, this is probably, rumor has it, this is probably going to be her last race of the Xterra America Series. She's going off to try and pursue the dream of making the Olympic team for Great Britain in just mountain biking, which speaks to the quality of mountain bikers we have in the off-road triathlon world. Melanie McQuaid, I believe, raced in the Olympics for Canada, or was a World Cup mountain biker at least. So these we're doing swim, bike, run, but we're about as good as it gets on the bike. So
well, and Leslie's shown us that before. She's done some UCI races.
Well, and she won. She won Benelli Park 2 years ago. Yeah, and was top. What was she, 6th or 7th? She was top 10 this year. Yeah. And so that's that's awesome. I think it's great because she makes an Olympic team and she goes to the Olympics as the girl who's an off-road triathlete. So, that's great for Xterra. It's great for off-road triathlon. It's unfortunate that the hoops you have to jump through means that you can't do both. Yeah. But you need to get those UCI points, and that means racing World Cups and UCI races all around the world, and it's just too hard to do both. You got to pick one or the other. That's where Ruben Razafa came from. Was World Cup mountain biking, missed the Spanish Olympic team a little bit, and now is doing Xterra. But which takes us to the other Xterra. Not to give the Euros second billing, but ours had 2 races in one. So, but then we had Xterra Portugal going on. And speaking of Ruben Razafa, he won, the defending world champion. He won over Francois Carloni, who I believe was second at the French Cross Triathlon National Championships last week. And then, how do you say it? I would say Yurei Luxem, but Will says it's Jedi.
So I've been told that it's not Yuri, it's Jedi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe if Yurei Jedi Luxem, however, you should write me and tell me how to say your name exactly. But you were third, and in a tight race with Francois Carloni, and then. This guy is going to be the future mascot of dirtTRI.com. I'm trying to figure out how we can give you some compensation for this, but the bearded one, Roger Serrano, Fear the Beard, was 4th. And then we got Hector Guerrera, Nico Fernandez, Thomas Kubek, who I'm probably saying wrong, Albert Soli, Fabian, Combaluzier, maybe. Jens Roth, then Llewellyn Holmes, some other people. We had a lot of, look at this, Spain, France, Belgium, Slovakia, Germany, England. We're looking at, this is a global sport. Yeah. Should be in the Olympics. Anyway, that was the ITU. But yeah, pretty solid race. Looked like an awesome course. I don't know if you saw all the bridging and stuff they had, and Will did the Will Kelsey tour of Europe last year. So
this is one of the fun things I was really excited about with the race director Jaime, that he is working to make this race. He wants it something really special, and he did that last year. Like, you couldn't ride 10 feet without seeing a rock painted with the Xterra X on it. Really? It was painted white. It was so fun. And last year, Nico Lebrun, the former Xterra world champ, who's now retired, was helping to improve the course, and he did it again this year. And
he's the Xterra European ambassador, right?
Yeah. So he's been throwing in a lot of fun stuff, and he's doing exactly what we're really excited to see. Is he's working to make every course unique and put something special out there in each one.
Yeah, and you saw that. I mean, last week with Xterra Mexico, they had some bridges and some obstacle stuff and some little bridges on the bike, that's cool. And in Brazil has that. Brazil. Yeah, it's a two loop swim. So you do one big loop out here, and then you run across the beach onto this pier, and you jump off a pier that looks like it's about a story and a half. It's like 20 feet high, back into the water to swim. And then the bike course evidently was just harder than Worlds, from what I heard. But the World Series, you've got France with all their like North Shore style wood bridges and stuff, and it'd be cool if we saw. I mean, in the U.S., we've got these phenomenal courses on phenomenal trails, but we don't have a lot of those kind of man-made things.
And that's some of the stuff like New Zealand, South Africa, and France. They're doing that something little bit extra that makes it special. They kind of add into it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the Red Bull type events where they have, these crazy, motocross races through a city center. Yeah. Upstairs, like over barges that are tied together on a river or something. And I think that stuff would be super cool. I'd love to see Xterra or Tina Tura or ITU or someone do that kind of a thing where you've got almost maybe in city centers more kind of man-made obstacles where you can't ride a road bike, you need a mountain bike, but maybe you don't have great trails, but you can still have an off-road triathlon or an all-terrain triathlon. Yeah,
you embrace whatever is in that local area and make it, have that local flavor for each of the races.
Yeah. I'd love to see more of that in the U.S. And we've got these phenomenal courses on phenomenal trails, but some of those where it's like if you're a race director in, say, Detroit, and you're like, well, we don't have trails, although you do have trails in Detroit, but you're somewhere that doesn't have a lot of trails, and what are we gonna? I'd like to do an Xterra, but what do we do? Well, get some shipping pallets. Yeah. Bolt those things together and build some hills.
Portugal did that this year. I think they
have
took
this mountain. I'll try and put a picture on this video, but they have this like mountain of like shipping pallets. It's crazy. But,
they took one from Xterra France on that one and followed suit. That is amazing. It's fun stuff. It's scary and it's fantastic because then the spectators can come out and watch. Yeah. And it's a good spot. You're probably going to see some action there. Yeah.
Well, and we're having like we just talked about in Alabama, and I mean this race we had battles, second, third, fourth, fifth. They're all within a minute and a half of each other. So you're having tight racing. Yeah. Good racing, good battles, neck and neck type racing. This isn't, this is something that would apply or appeal to, spectators. Yeah. We're not talking about, and I'm not, don't want to attack other formats of triathlon, but it's not like you're going to a long course race and people are, going off into the distance for 4 hours and maybe they'll come back. Yeah. This is tight racing. It's right there. You can go see it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is you're seeing more and more in Xterra is they're realizing to bring the race back to the spectators, and they're adding features and doing stuff, multi-lap races, things to kind of keep it tighter together so that not only are the racers having fun, but everybody else who's there supporting them, that they have something to watch and something to do.
Well, and that's one of the beauties, I think, of off-road triathlon is that we're not, an Ironman or a long course race is 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, 24 mile. If it's not that, it doesn't count. Yeah. And with ours, with off-road, you're not so pigeonholed. If you don't have a big lake, it can be a 1K swim. Yeah. If you don't have tons and tons of trails, you can do laps, or you can make it a little bit shorter. We're not as trapped with that, and I think the ITU doesn't realize that they hit on this, but they kind of hit on the term cross triathlon. They made it as cross country, but I'm thinking like the way that cyclocross is, where you've got short, really quick lap courses, mud, sand, barriers, all that kind of stuff. We can bring that think of a Brazil type swim, 2-lap swim with like almost barriers in the swim
Yeah.
that you get to jump off of, though. You don't have to. You get to jump off of it. Bike courses where you have some run-ups or some barriers to run over, bridges and stuff like that.
Handoffs.
Yeah, beer handoffs. Running. I'm a former steeplechaser. Bring some barriers in, water jumps, But we have a lot of, there's flexibility, and I think that you're seeing that with the way that the European and the world, the race promoters are creating courses. But anyway, back to Portugal. Not to ignore the women. We had Catherine Moeller of Germany, last year's ITU cross triathlon world champion.
Yeah, she
won it.
On fire last year. Unfortunately, she didn't have a real good race at Worlds, but it already looks like she's back to the same form that she was in last summer.
And then some Helena Arabanova. I'll work on this. This is the first one. Was second, and you said that she's been a little bit hot and cold in the past.
Yeah. So. It was good to see her. She just ran like the wind. But yeah, she's had, last year she had some really, really stellar races, and then some other ones that weren't so good. So it was cool to see that she, put it together and had a good race this last weekend.
And then continuing, so we have a German, a Czech, and now a Hungarian, Brigitte Pour, in third, and then Morgan Roux, I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure, French. She won the French national championship for cross triathlon last week. She was fourth, and then Louise Fox from Great Britain was third. Karen Hansen from fifth. Sorry, Karen Hansen, Switzerland, sixth, and then Sophie Breitz from Portugal was seventh. So that's 7 different countries in the top 7.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That should tell the ITU and the IOC that this should be an Olympic sport. But enough. I'll lay off. But yeah, so that was Xterra Portugal. Pretty cool, pretty good race, it looked like. Anything to say?
About Portugal, that's, that, no.
Sorry. And done. So in Alabama, we had the USAT Off-Road Triathlon National Championships for the age groupers, which is a Worlds qualifier for 2016. And the champions, the winners, were Mimi Stockton and for the women, obviously, and Daryl Weaver for the men. Interestingly, both in the 40 to 44 age group.
Yeah, and this was really cool because especially in the men's race, it was a kid who almost won it, in 20s.
Yeah, and freshman at CU.
And he got out-sprinted.
Cole Bunn. Got out-sprinted by the old dude. So power to the old guys. Ned, come back. We need you. But it's good. It's good racing. Out-sprinting in the age groups. Just tight racing going on in the off-road scene. And it's cool that the women, there was some real depth. There was 40 states represented,
something like that,
and over 300 people in the race. So it's a deep race, and fully like a true national championship. So that was really cool to see. We have the story up on dirtTRI.com, and I'll post the results here as well, and a link to that if you want. But yeah, kind of weird that you're qualifying for the next year's World Championships before.
At the beginning of this year.
The ITU Cross Triathlon World Championships this year are in Sardinia in September. Late September?
Yeah.
Because it's week. It's the week after USA or Xterra Nationals.
Yeah, they were originally scheduled for May, but they got pushed back to the end of the season.
Yeah, which is, I don't know. I've always thought that national championships, world championships should be at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Worlds is in April, but it's kind of like NASCAR. Daytona is first, and then everything is kind of a letdown after that. But yeah. So. Anyway, that's kind of a recap of the racing. We're going to be doing this show. We're going to try and do it once a week, kind of recap the racing and stuff. But then we'll be doing podcast, video casts as well on tech reports, as well as maybe just do kind of a chat session once a week. But we'll see how this one goes.
Yeah.
And thanks for tuning in.
Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah.
See you next week.
All right.